Namaste to everyone, ladies and gentlemen, scholars and guardians of India's ecological heritage. Today I wish to speak about a river that few Indians have seen or heard about it, yet whose fate may define the balance between progress and preservation in our southernmost frontier, that is the Galathea River, or as the islanders prominent in Galatia. For those who walked through the Great Nicobar's deep rainforest, Galatia is not a mere blue line on a map. It is a living artery, an ever flowing pulse of fresh water, food, and faith. It nourishes mangroves and turtle beaches, sustains the Shompen tribe, and once quenched the thirst of travelers and naval expeditions. It is no exaggeration to say, as long as Galathea flows, Great Nicobar lives. In this present discussion, I will trace Galathea's history, explain its hydrology, ecology, recount its cultural centrality for the Shompen and other islanders, document the risks that the present Great Nicobar project poses to the river and dependent communities, and finally propose practical evidence based measures to protect the river and its people. To prepare this document, it took for me more than 25 days. At the end of this discussion, I have provided detailed bibliographic references which I have collected from various sources. Please look into the bibliography so that you can able to understand the importance of Galathea River. My approach combines direct field observations, historical sources such as archives, natural sources, folklore, folk literature, ecological reasoning, and precautionary ethic grounded in the lived reality of this island. The present discussion, Galathea River, beautifully connects ecology, culture, and humanity, a rare blend of scholarship and compassion. First, let us look into the name and early maritime history of the Galathea River. The word Galathea carries echoes of maritime adventures. In the 1840s, a Danish naval expedition, the HMS Galathea, sailed across the Bay of Bengal conducting hydrophonic surveys. The ship's name was later bestowed on the river and the bay that shared calm estuary. Since then, Galathea has appeared in the British Admiralty charts, Danish records, and eventually in the Indian gazettes. The regions presented a Galathea Bay and Galathea National Park owe their titles to the colonial cartographic inheritance. Yet long before European ships dropped anchor, the river had been a sacred and social artery for the Shompen people, flowing silently through their oral maps and daily rituals, Ganga of the South Sea. Now let us discuss about physical geography and hydrological uniqueness of Galathea River. The Galathea River rises from its mist-laden slopes of Mount Tullur, the highest peak in the Nicobar Islands at over 642 meters. From its forest cradle, the river plunges southward, threading through untouched evergreen rainforest, forming oxybow pools, and finally fanning into mangrove and nipa estuaries before meeting the Indian Ocean. It is one of the very few perennial rivers not only in the Nicobar chain but across many small oceanic islands worldwide. A rare hydrological gift of nature. Most islands similar size depend on ephemeral streams or rain-fed ponds. Galathea alone retains flow throughout the year due to its dense canopy, deep aquifers, and stable precipitation regime. This feature makes it not merely a local stream but a hydrological marvel of the Indian Ocean. Now let us briefly talk about the river as a sacred entity. In Hindu cosmology, every perennial river is viewed as a manifestation of divine grace. Like the Ganga emerging from Shiva's locks, Galathea too, descendants from the sacred highlands of Mount Tellur, which islanders call the spirit of life. Locals, particularly Nicobarese settlers and Hindu workers posted in this region, have come to view the Galathia as the southern Ganga, symbolizing continuity, purity, and fertility. In unbroken flow, it is revered as an auspicious shrine, the Dakshina Ganga of the Indian Ocean, a river untouched by pollution or industrial interference. Several field workers and visitors devotees have described performing small jala archana, that is water offering, near the river mouth, acknowledging the divinity of pure fresh water emerging amidst salt and sand. Thus, in the spiritual geography of India, the Galathia can be regarded as the Ganga of South Seas. Now, let us have a brief look into the ecology, forest, mangroves, and fauna richness of this biosphere. The Galathia Basin is a mosaic of tropical evergreen forest, rich in endemic flora like Diprothops, Hopia, and the sacred Eleucrops gantitudes, that is Rudraksha. Along the river banks grow large Rudraksha trees whose blue seeds, sacred to Lord Shiva and unique sanctity to this ecosystem. These riparian forests form a natural filtration system. Roots anchor the soil, fallen leaves enrich groundwater, and canopies regulate evaporation. The estuarine zone, where freshwater meets the sea, hosts mangroves of Rhizophora, Avicennia, and Brugueria, breeding nurseries for fish and crustaceans. At the mouth lies one of the world's most important nesting beaches for the giant leatherback turtles. Now, let us have a discussion on Galathia's freshwater to travelers as a maritime oasis. For centuries, mariners treated Galathia not as a scenic curiosity but as a pragmatic lifeline. Sailing ships of the 18th and 19th century routinely sought the Galathia mouth to take on sweet freshwater and wood after long passage across the Indian Ocean. Naval and merchant logbooks recorded repeated watering calls that kept ships and crews alive in era when potable water was a voyager's most precious commodity. Hydraulic compendia such as J. Hansberg's Directions for Sailing to and from the East Indies and Admiralty charts signal out the Nicobar southern base as a dependable water stops. I quote here Hansberg's what he has mentioned in his traveler's note, offers abundant supplies of fresh water and harbor for ships on the south coast of Nicobar. Later, naturalists like Claus noted how crews filled our tanks under palms before the storm front arrived, enduring value as a maritime oasis. Such accounts reveal that this was no ordinary river. It was a strategic freshwater oasis in the middle of the Indian Ocean. This sustained not only seafarers but also created ephemeral contacts, points that island people and shaped the early mapping of Great Nicobar. Crucially, the material evidence in ship logs and hydrographic notes shows continuity. The scheme freshwater pools praised by 18th century masters appears in 19th century surveys and in early 20th century naturalist reports, underlining Galathia's long-standing role as a practical oasis. Have a brief look about the Shompen and the river, a cultural lifeline. From the Shompen, the river is not a boundary but a bloodstream. Their semi-nomadic life revolves around the Galathia's tributaries, which provide tubers, fish, game, and medicinal plants. Each bend as a pool has a name, a story, or a taboo. Some pools are associated with ancestral spirits, others are revered for specific hunting rituals. Anthropologists have documented that distribution these river zones leads directly to loss of food sovereignty and cultural erosion. In essence, Galathia is not just a water, it is an ethnographic map of Shompen identity. Now I would like to discuss with you about my personal reflections that is from 1993 to 1996, my fieldwork in Great Nicobar Island. During my fieldwork, I drank directly from Galathia's pools and shallow springs. The water was cool, sweet, and clear, not a trace of salinity. Each source was shaded by thick stands of Rudraksha and Dipteropia trees, whose roots formed natural wells. These experiences confirmed what hydrology teaches: where the forest stands intact, the water remains pure. The symbiosis between evergreen canopy and freshwater purity cannot be overstated. Conversely, cleaning the forest canopy would mean silting, salinization, and slow death of the river. Based on my in-depth association with the Great Nicobar Island and the Galathea River, I would like to describe the Galathea River as a hydrological and spiritual sangam. Geologically, the Galathea Bay represents the meeting of three sacred energies, that is, mountain descending waters, that is, symbolizing Shiva's compassion; the ocean eternal rhythm, that is, symbolizing Vishnu's sustenance; and the forest fertility, symbolizing Shakti's nurturing force. This triadic meeting, mountain, forest, and Sri mirrors the sacred confluence, that is, Triveni Sangamam of the Ganga, Yamuna, Saraswati. Hence, spiritually, Galathea is the Triveni of the Indian Ocean. A remember that sanctity is not confined to the mainland. In island ecology, the health of the river equals the health of the sea. Now let us have a brief look into the modern development and emerging threats for Galathea. Today, the Galathea faces its greatest challenge. The proposed transshipment port and township at Great Nicobar plans, including massive land clearance, coastal dredging, and infrastructure corridors that will directly intersect the river's basin. Official documents project water extraction of tens of millions of liters per day from Galathea catchment, a figure that could destabilize aquifers and dry up perennial pools. Without rigorous environmental safeguards, sedimentation, oil spills, and dredging could irreversibly destroy the delicate mangrove marine interface and the river's self-regulating ecology. Now let us have a brief discussion on the river Galathea as a living laboratory for biodiversity. The Galathea estuarian mouth is an ecological classroom. Here freshwater species coexist with salt-tolerant mangrove fauna, mud skippers, mangrove crabs, mollusks, and juvenile fish that feeds both humans and seabirds. This living laboratory demonstrates how life adapts to gradients of salinity and sediments. If blocked by construction, this natural equilibrium will collapse. The river mouth acts as the lungs of the Great Nicobar, filter and breathe combined. To choke this flow is to suffocate the entire island ecosystem. Now let us look into the legal and conservation status of Galathea River Basin. The Galathea lies within the multiple conservation designations: Galathea Bay Sanctuary, Great Nicobar Biosphere, and UNESCO's Man and Biosphere Program. However, recent regulatory relaxations, boundary modifications, and eco-sensitization zones alterations have alarmed conservations. The precautionary principle of environmental law demands that irreplaceable habitats like Galathea's headwaters be treated as no-go zones. India's environmental heritage cannot afford to sacrifice such ecosystem for short-term economic calculus. The practical recommendations for balanced coexistence are: if we truly aspire to balance development and dharma, the following measures are essential. The first one is hydrological no-go zone. Legally protect Mount Tullur upper catchments. Forest cover equals water security. Second one is river buffer strips. maintain native vegetation corridors along all tributaries to prevent erosion and filtration loss. The third one is sustainable water extraction, cap industrial water withdrawal, prioritize tribal and ecological needs. Fourth one is community led monitoring, involve the Shompen and Nicobaris in participatory water and biodiversity surveillance. Fifth one is strategic environmental assessment, undertake island scale cumulative studies, not fragmented projects EIAs. Each of these recommendations align with India's constitutional duty, that is Article 48A, to protect the environment and with the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. Let us have a brief discussion on the comparative perspectives, lessons from global indigenous participation SIP. We may draw parallels from Inuit co-management models in Canada's Arctic. Their indigenous councils share authority with the federal government over resource use, revenue sharing, and conservation. A similar Nicobar co-management council could ensure the Shompen's participation in decision making, turning them from passive subjects into active stakeholders. Such a partnership embodies the spirit of prior, and informed consent, a cornerstone of ethical engagement with indigenous peoples. Now, I wanted to say a few words on the sacred science of Galathia. Ancient Indian philosophy teaches that water, that is Jala, is the carrier of life force, that is prana. In the Vedas, it is said, Apohista Mayobhavaha, water is the source of joy and life. The Galathia embodies the truth more vividly than any urban river today. Its journey from the mountains, heart of the oceans, embrace mirrors of the soul's passage from source of salvation. To pollute or divert, it is not merely ecological error, it is a spiritual sacrilege. Hence, the Galathia deserves recognition as a sacred natural heritage site, a river of both ecological and spiritual sanctity. For millennium, the Shompens have lived in reciprocity with this river, harvesting but never exhausting. Their worldview reflects Sanatana Dharma, ecological ethics, that land and water are not positions but relations. The Shompen very survival depends on Galathia's purity, their rituals, songs, and kinship networks echoes the rhythm of its flow. Recognizing their stewardship is not charity, it is an acknowledgement of pre existing sacred contact between people and nature. My humble appeal is Galathea River mouth is a living laboratory of biodiversity. It hosts mangroves such as Rhizophora apiculata, Purguria gymnoraha, and Aventia marina, along with estuarian species like Mudixpurs, mangrove crabs, mollusks, and juvenile fish that breed there. These mangroves form a natural buffer, preventing saline seawater from entering the freshwater zone of the Galathea River. If this delicate interface is disturbed, the saltwater intrusion could kill upstream vegetation, alter the freshwater ecology, and threaten the subsistence resources not only to the Shompen but also to the future depend on freshwater to the people and for the proposed project. I therefore urge that policymakers and administrators should think on this issue to take care that the delicate interface is not disturbed. Otherwise, the saltwater intrusion could kill upstream vegetation, alter the freshwater ecology, and threaten the substances freshwater resources. And also, I suggest no construction occur east of the Galathea up to its mouth, which is ecological and spiritually critical. Let the river's flow remain unobstructed. Its mouth, if possible, proposal may be altered to minimize the destruction of the mouth of Galathea. Let the planners and engineers integrate conservation into the blueprint not as an afterthought but as the foundation itself. Let the Shompen scientists and administrators together become trustees of this living Galathea River. I had a lengthy discussion on the sacredness and also importance of the Galathea River. Before concluding, let us summarize the discussion which you have made so far. The Galathea River is not just a stream of water, it is a metaphor for the Indian idea of balance, where development must walk beside Dharma and where the earth is seen as a mother, not as a material. To destroy the Galathea for short term ambitions is to undo thousands of years of ecological harmony. To protect it is to affirm that India's morality will not abandon its moral and spiritual compass. As we speak of a Viksit Bharat, a development that India, let us remember, no civilization that neglects its rivers can call itself truly developed. Galathea is our reminder that the future flows from the purity of our choices, just as the river flows from the purity of its source. My final message to the viewers is the Galathea River is not just a water, it is a life culture and continuity. Policymaker must protect it with wisdom, administrator with care, and citizens with respect. Development must never destroy what sustains us. To save the Galathea is to secure the future of Great Nicobar and humanity itself. Thank you very much for your kind hearing. I hope you enjoyed this brief discussion on the sacredness of Galathea River, which I called the Ganga of the Indian Ocean. If you like this discussion, please forward it to your friends, colleagues, group people, and also the policy makers and administrators to know the importance and sacredness of Galathea River in Great Nicobar Island. Thank you very much. Hope we will meet you in another discussion. Thank you.